Mitakai Arason, as I was saying, it's too hot today for a fire in the hearth, in the fireplace. Today, the fire is in my heart. Some of you aren't going to like what I'll have to say in this presentation. As I've told you before, life is risking offending others. Speaking and thinking is risking offending others. But we all have our limits on what potential offenses we are willing to tolerate. All I ask is that today you permit me a fair audience of your time. There's been another mass shooting, even worse, if it is even possible to actually measure the degree of depravity of such a crime. The shooting was culturally motivated. A perversely sick white man took upon himself to publicly execute as many black people as he could. Now, that's what I had originally written. But now there has been another shooting. Children. 19 children. And 2 adults. I am so sick. We all are. Every time there is a mass shooting, and really any time there is a murder of any sort, there is hate involved. There is severe illness involved. It is a travesty of the basest sort, and it demands some sort of family and community and societal intervention to prevent these acts from ever occurring again. The men who did this, and I will not speak their names, must face justice, and all the families affected by these heinous acts must be given lifelong consolation and must receive their own measure, full measures of justice. None of us should speak the shooters' names, but we do. The media makes sure of this. There is one throughput to all these deaths, all this carnage. It is not what we call racism. It is not bigotry toward black or brown or white, toward children or Texans or adults or even any one specific demographic. The throughput is we are a sick, sick nation. We have legitimized taking out our anger violently, passionately, forcibly, eternally on anyone we deem unworthy of our compassion. In 2020, George Floyd was murdered by scattered-brained police officers. In response, that year and next, we marched and hurled missiles at police and store owners and wearers of MAGA hats. We burned, pillaged, and murdered. David Dorn was a retired black police officer murdered in the George Floyd riots in Minneapolis. KB Bala is a black man whose entire business was ransacked and razed in those riots. In Philadelphia, where I live, dozens of black-owned businesses were damaged during these riots. It is a long list, and I do not want to read the list I have for fear of inadvertently leaving someone out that should be recognized. Our nation's ills do not end there, oh no. Women and men have been sexually assaulted, victims of Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey and Bill Cosby. In response, we publicly denounce anyone we suspect of sexual misconduct in the hopes of securing a swift and brutal public verdict, which then soon leads to a more fiduciary verdict. People lose their jobs and reputations. The obvious place to point right now is Johnny Depp, because this has fascinated us for far longer than the 3 seconds it deserves. All public evidence right now strongly suggests that the abuser was Amber Heard, or perhaps more accurately, that the worst abuser of the two was Amber Heard. It's certainly within the realm of possibility that Depp is actually guilty and will be charged as such, but it doesn't look that way now. He is mounting a spirited and expensive defense. But how many of those who are accused and tried by public opinion and fired from their jobs unjustly have the resources of Depp? We are so often subjected to the daily slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, and more to the point, to outrageous people who think that they have some sort of privilege over us, that in response, we are hair-trigger quick to anger, and so passionate in our defense of that anger that Will Smith can savagely slap Chris Rock in front of millions. And yes, I am perfectly justified in using the term savagely. This was not a light swipe. Will Smith used to be savagely dissed by progressives, many if not most of them black, for being too benign. Too white, they said. And now not only his slap, but those who criticize him for it are being called racist and sexist. Larry Elder, who is a very well-spoken, knowledgeable black man, intelligent, polite to a fault, well-dressed, and not in any way does he appear or sound white, whatever that is denounced as the black face of white supremacy? What foolishness is this? South Carolina Senator Tim Scott daily faces the same accusations. So does Baltimore politician and businesswoman Kim Klacik. And in Atlanta, the Coalition of Black Americans for a Better Future criticized former Representative Stacey Abrams as not qualified to speak for all black people within their district. But she assumes that she can speak for all black people, notwithstanding. Specifically, they scorned her role in forcing Major League Baseball to remove the World Series from Atlanta at the cost of $100 million that could have gone to black businesses and black entrepreneurs. My point is, and please don't you carelessly accuse me of being racist or bigoted or Pollyannish or naive or supremacist or any other colorful and dismissive adjective you can think of. Be smarter than that. My point is that our responses are not any better than the events and behaviors we are responding to. Not even a jot, not even a smidge. There is evil and badness in this world, in our nation, and we will not defeat it. We will not even manage it by being just as cruel and just as implacable as those we purport to rail and rally against. We cannot penalize good people because we feel enraged, because we feel helpless. Further, much further, and much more saliently, we cannot define good people as helpless and hapless simply because they belong to a recognized cultural demographic, or to any demographic for that matter. To say that the Buffalo victims are victims simply because of their skin color, and that the only way to address their victimhood is to universally censure people of another skin color is dismissive, reductive, patronizing, stigmatizing, contemptuous, pompous, disdainful. It absolves millions of people from even attempting to assume any responsibility for their lives. And that is bigotry of the most humiliating and crippling kind. Mass shootings are defined by 4 or more people who are violently attacked in a single event. Now, this doesn't include the attacker, who may also be killed in the event, which, if it happens, ends the event. So guess how many mass shootings there have been this month thus far? 45. 45, with 61 dead. Now, all of these shootings make local headlines, but it's the indescribably heinous, in this case 2, which make national news and which draw hasty, harsh opinions from national news reporters. In fact, there were several mass shootings in Philadelphia, one just yesterday. And when these indescribably heinous shootings make the headlines, we have no shortage of celebrities and politicians and everyday folks condemning one group or another for the slaughters, be they whites or Republicans or, well, actually, I may have just exhausted that list. In fact, when the Palestinian-American soldier who killed 13 and wounded 32 others in Fort Hood, Texas in 2009, we were told it was in response to whites and Republicans. When a black man shot dead Dallas police officers in 2016, we were told it was a consequence of white supremacy. When a black man shot dead Brooklyn police officers in 2014, we were told it was a consequence of white supremacy. When a black gunman shot and wounded 3 Korean hair and nail stylists in Dallas last year, we were told it was an act of white supremacy. And in Philadelphia a few years ago, when a black man was gunned down by other black men, Black Lives Matters had nothing to say. They weren't even a presence at the funeral. I know because I was there. I know because that murdered man was a son of dear friends. But a Black Lives Matters acknowledged this heinous crime does nothing to further their hatred, their agenda of hatred of whites and Republicans. Spot the pattern? If everything is blamed on the same cause, the same group, the same people, nothing is solved. And because nothing is solved, our rage and fear grow exponentially. Nothing is solved, and those of us who have to live with the consequences are reduced to nothing more than angry puppets, easily manipulated, easily maneuvered into thinking and acting in the manner in which those who do the maneuvering want us to think and act. How gobsmacked we will be if all the whites and Republicans are removed and the violence continues. You know, many of those same people who demand swift action to the shootings have had nothing of critical to say about Will Smith's assault on Chris Rock. In fact, many actually had good things to say about Smith or stood and applauded him moments after the assault. They say nothing about Will Smith for fear of being condemned on social media and losing affection from the public. but will condemn Republicans or white people, even if they are white, to receive even more affection from the public. Now, why do I draw this comparison, you ask? Do I equate the Smith slap and mass shootings? No. Do I equate the irrational justification of publicly unleashed rage? Hell yes. Here's a small step in the right direction. Reduce the number of guns on the street. By all means, reduce the number of guns on the street and in this country, and do it now. But make no mistake, that would be a small step. That alone would not come close to addressing the issue at hand. For why are we so angry? Why are we so ill? Why have we allowed ourselves to lose control of ourselves? To say that the Texas and Buffalo victims are dead because of supremacy or bigotry or because of Republicans and conservatives does not address the anger, the illness, the hatred. We need a conversation. Conversation, y'all. Not this ridiculous repeated call for dialogue. We need an actual, heartfelt conversation where every voice is heeded. Conversation is interactive, fully engaged, where listening is key, where everyone is recognized and heard, and every reason for every thought and action is weighed, and every ounce of compassion is extended so as to understand and to forge common ground, where we may finally recognize the common ground that we all have been standing upon for generations. Or the anger builds, the frustration builds, the rage and despair build. No more talking points, no more political or organizational slogans, no more standing still in our tracks, refusing to admit that action must be taken here in our own hearts and here with our own hands. Just people, all of us, everyone working toward grace, towards saving, redemptive grace. Peace, y'all. 4 fingers.